Start recording. About 30 seconds, it'll start. Hey, how's it going? This is Cooperators. This is Chucking Dice. With me is Augmented Biscuits.
Yup.
He is alive. He has been sick along with the rest of his family. There is a flu bug going around. It's like the movie The Stand.
Yep.
So far, many people have died from it. I'm not kidding about this. A lot of people.
It's a pretty bad flu season.
Yeah.
That's all actually I kept hearing this entire time was that this is a really, really, really bad flu season, especially for kids and old people.
And old people.
Not us youngins who are.
People at the hospital were being turned away because they couldn't accommodate that many patients.
Yeah.
So glad that you're still alive. Glad your family's still alive.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I also want to say F you to the people who don't get flu shots because you're fucking it up for everybody.
Well,
and herd immunity, bro. Come on.
That don't get flu shots or that do get flu shots?
That don't get flu shots.
Really? Because I haven't gotten the flu shot and I haven't gotten the flu.
Because you're not exposed to the amount of germs people are normally who have kids. Like, that's how me and my wife get sick. Is we actually get it? We get sick from our children who pick it up from going to school with other children who are sick.
Right.
I think ever since I had children, I have never been more sick than I have now. Like, when I didn't have kids, I really only got sick maybe once a year, and now I get sick probably like twice a year. Usually like either, Christmas or New Year, and then usually around summer I get sick.
I get like really bad allergies around this time of year, just because I haven't really acclimated to the absence of like a season change. Usually around this time of year, I mean, it's obviously winter, but even before that, it's fall. In California, there doesn't seem to be like I would call a fall.
No.
I mean, it feels just like spring. It's spring. It'll be actually really hot, so it just feels like a really hot summer.
Yeah, California is either really, really warm and hot, or okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess fall. You could say, oh well, when the hills start burning, there you go.
Yeah,
there's your fall right there. It looks like a Mordo.
Yeah, I mean, as much as people like California weather, there's times where I really dislike it. Especially when it's just hot all the time.
I mean, I've been in real cold winters, and like if you think flu season was bad, like in this neck of the woods, when it's really cold, that's when it really sucks. I usually get really sick in the summer.
Yeah. I pretty much I've mapped it out, and I get sick when my kids go back to school. Right. Which is
now. Yeah.
Which is winter break or summer break.
All right.
Like after summer break. Yeah. Right. So we got a lot of show. We've been out for a while, chucking dice, held down the fort and went to RetroCon.
Yeah, special thanks to Cotterman for coming with me.
By the way, that story he told about the anime titty was hilarious.
When the titty come off.
Yeah.
This one titty come off, this one titty will come off. I don't know if this one titty come off.
I did feel bad for you guys. It sounded like RetroCon was kind of a bust.
You know what? RetroCon was kind of a bust, but I did really enjoy Frankenstein's by itself. I mean, I forgot how much stuff that's at Frankenstein's, and like I never got that Devastator toy because I think the shop closed up by the time we got back and went through the I would say the non-panel. But I did get to meet the gaming historian personally and just talk to him, and we just talked a little bit about if he was originally from Kansas, because that's where actually he lives now. He wasn't. He's not actually not originally from there. He moved there from, I think, was it Virginia or something like that?
Kansas City.
He lives in Kansas City, Kansas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, by the way, for the Blu-ray.
Yeah, no problem.
It was great. My wife watched a few episodes, but I
Right.
watched the entire thing. Really good. I actually especially liked his segment of the history of the gaming historian, which is nice.
Or where he talks about himself.
Yeah, and he kind of goes through and like looking at the older older videos and when he first started, and no, it was really really nice. I think my favorite episode probably so far is great. I just blanked out. They're all really good.
I like the special one, the one what's called Grand Theft Auto Hot Coffee. I've never knew that actually existed.
Yeah, no, it was a huge thing. His Game Gear one was pretty great.
Right.
Yeah, the Sega. Yeah. The one that actually was really good. It's one of the longer form ones. The ones he said he really enjoyed doing. It was really like the history behind it all.
Was it the baseball one?
No, it was God. It had to do with essentially Atari and Nintendo suing each other.
Oh yeah.
That one was really good.
That was the that's not the one about the Tetris ones just came online. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. One thing I do want to see him, and I think he touched upon this for I know a lot of places have touched upon this, but I still would like to see a good like documentary or like even dramatic retelling of the fallout between Nintendo and Sony PlayStation.
Oh yeah, he did something of that matter. He did the initial prototype of the PlayStation. I'm sorry, not PlayStation.
The Nintendo,
the add-on, basically
the
Super
CD,
Nintendo add-on CD.
I would love to see a like a movie based on that. That actually would be cool.
Actually, I'd love to see a movie based on like anything that has to do with like video game creation, because I think that hasn't been touched upon, and maybe because I don't know, most of it would take place in Japan, and like I don't know if like people would find that at least a normal audience would find that interesting. I would think it would be fascinating to watch. I mean, if everyone wants to watch, how Steve Jobs apparently saved the world with Apple products.
There was 3 of those fucking movies. And
yeah.
The only good one was the one that was on TNT, which was like the Pirates of Silicon.
Oh, Pirates of Silicon Valley was awesome.
Movie.
Yeah,
I love that
movie too.
But I watched the Ashton Kutcher jobs, and that movie's fucking horrible. And then I watched the one with Michael Fassbender, and that one was better, but still like
it's like a ball fondler kind of thing.
Well, it also makes Steve Jobs really, really, really fucking hateable, no matter what. Like,
well,
the guy is not redeemable whatsoever as a person.
Right. I mean, he did have. I mean, a lot of people, become fanboys about Apple products and like Steve Jobs as their messiah. And in fact, they kind of treat it like a religion. In fact, every time I see those like kind of tech get-togethers. And this is slowly turning into what I see at like Comic-Con, like when Disney does like a panel, maybe D23 or whatever it's called. Is that the Disney thing?
Yeah.
It looks like a Republican or Democratic national convention.
Yeah.
And like I feel that vibe is in Apple when they do their presentation.
You have to drink you basically have to be in the Kool-Aid. You have to drink the Kool-Aid.
Right. Yeah. And I get it. They want to basically create a good vibe for whatever they're releasing and such. And I get that. But some people get like really fanatical about that. Yeah. And it's weird. And like Steve Jobs, did have a bit of a mean streak, in him. I don't think he was a terrible person. But like, he's like any other businessman, who created this like huge empire. The Woz, on the other hand, that's a different story.
Yeah.
Wozniak.
Yeah. The
Woz. That guy's incredible.
Yeah.
I do kind of see similarities to Steve Jobs and like in terms of like I guess creators who created an empire, George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry. they seem to. Okay, so with George Lucas and Gene Roddenberry, there was a portion where they kind of started believing their own hype, and that's when quality went down for them when they were doing Star Wars and Star Trek. Kind of forgetting about a lot of the people who were involved in the creation of that product. Like I would say Gene Roddenberry, yes, he thought of the idea of Star Trek, but there was this writer named Gene L. Kuhn who thought of like things like Klingons, different things. Like he wrote a good majority of the episodes that kind of established the continuity. But Gene Roddenberry gets all the credit because he was the one who thought of the show and he was the producer. Gene L. Kuhn died like 2 or 3 years after Star Trek went off the air. So you don't really, I mean, obviously, like, no one from his estate is going after, any of the money or anything like that. But, and so Gene Roddenberry had kind of free reign to say, well, I created all this stuff and this is my creation. Yeah, I guess. But
kind of like,
you really didn't.
Kind of like the Bill Finger with Batman.
Oh, with Batman, yeah.
Yeah.
You got Bill Finger, the artist, and Bob Kane, the writer. Now, if Bob Kane had its way, Batman would have this like almost like Leonardo da Vinci style like flying apparatus. You wouldn't have Commissioner Gordon. There'd be no bat signal. There'd be no Joker. There'd be no any kind of like rogues gallery.
Actually, no Joker would be good because I'm actually frankly sick with the Joker.
I will never be sick of the Joker because of Mark Hamill.
Well, that's the only iteration of the Joker I'm okay with.
Yeah, I know. That's the greatest Joker. That's the Joker.
That's the only Joker.
That's the only Joker. Anyways.
Moving on.
Let's move on. We're going to be talking about some games. We're going to be talking about a little bit of Shadow of the Colossus. We might touch upon Star Wars Battlefront 2, Monster Hunter. We're going to talk about a Kickstarter, the NES Maker.
Which I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'm super interested in.
Which is about creating your own NES games, which is amazing. And I have caught up with all of Star Trek Discovery, a.k.a. Star Trek Disco. Their season finale is tonight. In fact, the NES Maker's Kickstarter is tonight as well. That's the last day. So.
Will the NES Maker help me make Custard's Revenge 2?
You could try and do it, yes.
I'm going to make it.
Right. You have to. They recommend though you have to create your own assets. You don't want to borrow any assets from anyone, any game. So you have to create all your own sprites.
They can't tell me They can't tell me what to do, and not to get sued by copyright infringement.
Okay, let's move on. So you have been playing Shadow of the Colossus HD on the PlayStation 4. What is Shadow of the? You've talked about Shadow of the Colossus.
Yeah. So for those of you who know, Shadow of the Colossus was a game that was released in I would say the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Early 2000s. It was really very popular at the time. Popular follow up to the game director Hideo Umeda. I always forget his name. Yeah, I think it's Hideo Umeda. His first game was Ico for the PS2.
Right.
Really kind of under the radar, one of those underappreciated games. Didn't sell too many copies, but it was a instant cult classic. It touched a lot of people. It was a great game, great gameplay.
It physically reached out and touched them.
It physically reached out and touched people. That's why a lot of people are in therapy now.
Yeah.
No, it was just really great design, and for that time, the graphics were just incredible. When people talk about games as art, they really point to Ico and also Shadow of the Colossus. Shadow of the Colossus was his anticipated follow-up, and gameplay was different from Ico, whereas Ico involved you trying to escape a castle with a princess. Shadow of the Colossus involved you. It was essentially just 16 boss battles that you went through. That's what the game was.
And these bosses were massive. You could like climb on top of them and stuff.
Yeah, they were massive bosses. You can climb on top of them. The first few bosses you were a little similar, where you just climb on top of them and you hit them in the weak spot. Later bosses had different kind of ways to get them to expose their weak spot. There was like this giant bird one that had these like air sacs that helped it fly. So you would use your arrows to like puncture the air sacs and let it go down so you can stab it. Really great game. Really great game. Beautiful aesthetic. Great music. I mean, the music is what I remember more of the game of, but it was still a really great game. Sold a lot of copies. And so recently, Blue Point Games, which actually is really been the go-to studio to do a lot of remakes and HD updates of games. They did. Blue Point did the HD release of the Metal Gear Solid games for PS3 and the PS Vita. They've done quite a bit of remakes and HD updates because they're so great at it. So they did Shadow of the Colossus. No longer the kind of PS2 graphics. It's all HD. Some people have complained they've kind of lost a little bit when they've done that because things look a lot crisper and cleaner, more vibrant, but it doesn't have that painting quality to it.
Right.
Gameplay's still there. Unfortunately, you still kind of have a little kind of wonky PS2 controls there. Although they let you remap some of the buttons to a more comfortable position. Still, though, I think it's worth a look at if you were a fan of the original or you've never actually played this. It's actually a really great game.
How much does it cost?
I think it's running for $40. But I would recommend it just because it's a great game to play. It's really not something you play. It's really nothing like any other game you've ever played before, and it looks great. Music's top notch, sound quality is great. It's almost like a giant puzzle game,
right?
Really. So like a lot of people, I think people who like games like Portal or like even Dishonored games, because a lot of those games are very gameplay driven. And it's very game design driven as well. You would appreciate these a lot. I will caution though, just like The Last Guardian, this game does have like 2 generation old controls.
Right.
So they might not be the best, most responsive controls. And that's the problem I had with The Last Guardian, was that was a game that was originally supposed to be released on the PS2 and then the PS3, and then when it finally made its way to the PS4, they failed to update their control scheme, so the controls are really wonky. But I still recommend this for anyone. Again, it's not a very expensive game, but I would say definitely check it out if you're looking for something different and something really high quality and just great game design.
Grab Shadow of the Colossus.
Now, the other game I'm playing, and again, this is due to me being sick, so I've actually been playing quite a bit of games.
Right.
Another game I've been playing is Star Wars Battlefront 2.
Which has been the news a lot now.
Yeah,
lately.
and recently EA they didn't meet their sales expectations for Battlefront 2.
Why is that?
Well, they're blaming it on the Loot Crate controversy. And the Loot Crate controversy, for those of you who don't know, is a lot of games now are kind of moving towards this games as a service.
Right.
And, one of the really more popular kind of take on this games as a service, or more like Loot Crates, has been Overwatch. You unlock skins and different animations, things like that for your character via Loot Crates. You can either spend real world money to buy these Loot Crates, or you can spend in-game cash. The problem with the in-game cash, though, it's that it takes longer than you just drop your money on this.
Right.
This isn't anything new. A lot of people think this is something recently, but this actually goes back to, this can be tied to actually Korean MMOs. Korean MMOs always had microtransactions.
I mean, any MMO has microtransactions.
Yeah, any MMO has microtransactions.
Phone games have microtransactions.
Yeah. But I mean, I know Korean MMOs especially were kind of the ones who really kind of pushed this, introduced American audience to this. I worked at a company that ran one of the more successful ones, and microtransactions wasn't anything new. The problem with EA, though, and especially the Battlefront 2 controversy, was that these microtransactions, these Loot Crates, would actually unlock these kind of ability cards that would give you advantages over anybody else. So the controversy was that, one, it was actually twofold. One, the Loot Crates, people said it was unfair for people who had the money to drop on these Loot Crates, would immediately start with the unfair advantage. The other part of that is that not only for the people who had the money to drop on this, they unlocked characters and vehicles a lot faster, or sometimes almost instantly, compared to actually playing the game. And somebody actually did that when the game first came out. Somebody did the math and they figured that in order for you to unlock everything you could in the game, it ended up being like over 100 hours to unlock heroes and things like that.
Right.
Whereas somebody who had the money, they could just unlock all this stuff right away. So that was a huge controversy.
Sounds like it's an unfair advantage, I'd say.
Yeah, it's an unfair advantage. The one thing people tend to forget though is that EA had said that they were not going to have DLC. Like all of their maps and game modes weren't going to be tacked on DLC. The whole point of them introducing loot crates to their game was they wanted to use the loot crates to fund their DLC. So the game you were getting, you were going to get updated maps, new game modes. You were going to get that all for free. So in order for them to pay for that development, they introduced loot crates. So that's the kind of state of the gaming industry now is making video games has gotten really, really expensive. And they have to find some kind of revenue, an alternate revenue in order to kind of keep the development costs down. So a lot of game makers have been using loot crates, DLC, things like that, to kind of have that consistent stream of revenue coming in once they initially release the game. Because again, game development has gotten really, really expensive.
Well, I mean, there's this side of it. EA is a huge game company, and they made a I guess a very beautiful game. It looks like the movies. Looks like Star Wars. But on the other side of that, Gun Media made Friday the 13th the game, and it doesn't look as pretty as this. However, all their new maps, all their new DLC, with the exception of costume skins, is completely free. I think most of that is because how successful their Kickstarter was initially, and the fact that some see it as sort of an apology because when that game first started, the servers melted and it couldn't accommodate. Use the word accommodate a lot.
It was really rough.
It was really rough.
The game was severely, because I know we played it.
Yeah.
When I first
I still play it.
Yeah.
I love the game.
Yeah.
But they're coming out with the Jason X and the Jason X maps. They're coming out with a couple different gameplay styles, and they're not going to be costing anything. It's just free. They just came out with Roy Jason. Roy is the copycat Jason from Part 5 because Jason Voorhees was actually not in that film. Little known fact. Actually, a lot of people know that.
Do you also think there's developers doing that with the Jason to also kind of build up their cred as a gaming developer? Because they're fairly new game developers.
They're fairly new, but they did actually sell. The game sold remarkably well, and it actually won an award apparently for best multiplayer game thingy. I don't know. I just heard they won some kind of reward. I don't really follow the gaming rewards. Or awards, I guess. Reward.
So that was a huge controversy with EA.
Right.
So I mean, it's really kind of how you want to look at it. The game itself is actually really great.
Right.
I would say as a first-person shooter, it looks really, really great. It looks beautiful.
Right.
It looks. I mean, their graphic engine is top-notch. It feels and sounds like a Star Wars game. My only gripe though is that it's very multiplayer-centric. So unless you're gonna really invest time in getting better at this game, you're gonna get your ass kicked.
Right.
They have a few modes. They have the normal soldier on the ground, multiplayer getting kills. They have team deathmatch. They also have their hero mode where you can pick your heroes you want to play as, like Luke or Han or Darth Vader, and you can go at it. Combat's really great. And then
Can I play as nice Noodles?
No, you can't. You can play as Sleaze Bagano though.
Sleaze Bagano.
And give people death sticks.
Hey, you want some death sticks?
The other mode that I actually really enjoyed was the Starfighter mode, and that's you just dogfighting.
Right.
But they actually updated it from the first Battlefront, which is now you have objectives. So one of the modes, one of the games I played the other day is you're flying over the skies of Camino, and your objective as the Separatists is you're trying to destroy the cloning facilities while when you're the Republic, you're trying to protect them. These modes are actually really, really fun, especially the Starfighter mode. I actually really like it a lot. The problem is I don't have time to invest to get better at these games, and I really don't like the flight controls in the game. They're a little wonky. They're not very intuitive for me. Usually with flight controls, you use the 2 sticks and you have your pitch and your roll and your yaw and stuff like that. The way they mapped it in Battlefront 2, though, is that the left stick is...
The death stick.
The left stick, the left stick is crashing into something. The left stick is up and down on the left stick is increasing and decreasing your thrust.
Uh-huh.
And then your right stick is basically your entire movement, which is really odd.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's really, really weird. And it's not very...
I'd say, use those as a trigger. Like,
you can change it.
I mean,
you can change the controls, but, again, I'm game flying this, so I was kind of like, I don't know if I really want to play this. It does come with the single-player mode. I feel like the single-player mode is more of kind of a bunch of multiplayer maps stitched together with a story. The story is actually interesting. It takes place between...
between episode 6 and 7, right?
Yeah, it takes between episode 6 and 7.
I saw some...
it's not bad. It's actually
movies on YouTube.
Pretty interesting, single player. But after a while, I kind of didn't really care for the ground combat. I really wanted to go back to the Starfighter. So, really, I think your enjoyment of this game would be like, one, you're a Star Wars fan, and 2, you love multiplayer shooters, and you have time to invest in this. So I would say check it out. I would say definitely rent it.
Rent it?
Rent it.
Not a buy?
It's kind of a hard sell, especially with that Loot Crate controversy. I mean, they fixed it.
Right.
EA fixed it. They actually changed the mechanics, but I don't know.
I mean, it didn't sell well. That's
it's a hard sell, honestly, because it's very multiplayer centric. For me personally, my personal taste, it's hard to recommend games that are multiplayer centric because, unless you have time invested in it, you really can't.
Well, I mean, going back to the Friday the 13th, it's a very simple game.
Yeah,
it'll only take you 20 minutes, and if you don't win in Friday the 13th, it's not the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't really take that game seriously, but I like the game.
Mm-hmm.
With this, I think fans would want to take it really seriously because it's that world that they want to be in. They want to pilot the Millennium Falcon. What's an aluminum Falcon?
Aluminum Falcon.
They want to pilot that thing, and they want to feel the force around them, and cuddle with their midichlorians. Freaking Star Wars fans. All right.
And finally, the final game we've been playing, and I've invested so many hours in this damn game, and
I've seen it.
It's got its meaty hooks in me, and it won't let go. And you actually have your friend Cotterman. I have a friend,
yeah. My friend Cotterman actually is in this game as well,
and he's obsessed with it.
He's obsessed. I actually watched one of his streams.
What did you think of it? What did you think of it initially?
Okay, so we're talking about Monster Hunter World, obviously.
Okay, so we're talking about Monster Hunter World. This is actually the latest iteration of the long-running series. This is a long-running series.
Yeah, it was on the 3DS at one point, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, this goes all the way back to, I believe, the PS2.
Right.
So it's been on the PS2. It's been on the PSP, the PS Vita, the 3DS, the Wii.
Yeah.
I think it was on the Wii U.
It's a Capcom game.
It's a Capcom game. Long iteration. One thing I will tell you, and up front with Monster Hunter, it's always been a very niche game because it's a very dense ass game. They do not make this game easy to understand and get through. And because I played the 3DS version. I actually played it on the PSP. I played the 3DS version. I never knew what the hell to do.
Right.
Perfect example, when you start off, they just throw a bunch of terms at you, and they want you to go gather mushrooms.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the very first quest is you go gather mushrooms. You don't fight a monster. You go gather fucking
Super Mario Brothers.
You go gather fucking mushrooms, all right? Then you have to kill smaller monsters, and then the mission is to cook their meat perfectly. This new iteration, though, by far the best version ever, because they make it so much more accessible. It's still a bit dense.
Yeah.
but it's so much more accessible.
It's a good dense.
They streamline a lot of the systems in this game. The game looks phenomenal. Like the worlds that you visit are so lush and beautiful. The monster design though, and you being a kaiju fan, you would actually really like the monster design of these.
Yeah.
I've seen them. Yeah. They have a really great monster designs. Yeah. I mean, it's top notch, and it doesn't even come down to designs too. It also comes down to the way they behave. Right. I mean, it's great.
So I mean, before we get any further, I mean, the concept of the game is that you're hunting monsters to and harvest them to create better
gear.
Yeah, better gear and such.
Also, Metal Gear.
Metal Gear.
I love how whenever they talk about Metal Gear in the Metal Gear series, Snake's always like, Metal Gear? Like,
Metal Gear?
Why are you fucking surprised? Like, how many times have you fought Metal Gear? Like, I imagine he'd be more like Isaac in Dead Space. He's like, fuck, again? The Necromorphs? Like,
Isaac in Dead Space became like friggin' Ash from Evil Dead to Army of Darkness. He like, okay, I've done this before.
Like, I know
Let's
what
go through the motions. Yeah. And then, like, you know, in the third one, Carver's just like, I'm freaking out. And he's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But it's the concept is like, you hunt these monsters. What I thought was really neat about the game when I was watching this is that the monsters seem to have minds of their own. And when I say that, they don't just it's not an MMORPG where they just said, oh, there's the player, let's go mob him. If there's like different species of monsters, and if you run into another one, they'll actually fight each other.
They will.
Like they're natural, they'll be natural predators against each other. One of my favorite things that I saw while Cotterman was playing is that he was hunting down this T-Rex looking thing that shot fire out of its mouth. And he was like chasing it down, and it made its ways to this nest where this huge ass like Rodan looking thing was there, and it was beating the crap out of him.
Yeah.
And like it was beating crap out of the monster, and he was just like ducking down. It's like, yeah, just keep on doing that, And then like,
he didn't throw the dung pod, because if you throw monster poop at another monster, they'll fly away.
Oh, it's like Jurassic Park. 4 or 3.
Did he end up beating Anjanath?
Nah, he ended up getting killed by that bird thingy, because I guess the bird thing is way too powerful.
He was probably fighting Raytheon.
Right. Yeah, whatever, nerd. Anyways.
Hey. God damn it.
He's fighting Raytheon.
Yeah.
He's the flying one.
He's the flying one. Wait, which one? There's 2 flying ones in the ancient forest, okay? Wait,
did he have a tail?
Wait, they both have tails. Wait, was one of them like red, had like red coloring on it?
I don't know.
God damn it! Why don't you know? Why don't you know these things? No, it's actually great that you bring up the AI of this. Because
that was actually, I thought it was pretty brilliant, because even the smaller monsters will just attack the big monster if it like intrudes their territory.
Yeah,
and it'll sometimes attack you, I guess.
Yeah, it's great. I'm glad you brought that up, because that's really the one aspect that makes this game feel very, very alive and different. Just like you were saying, if you can actually lead one monster to another monster, they'll start fighting.
Yeah.
And this isn't just like some kind of scripted thing where like, oh, they'll start fighting, but it really has no bearing on the fight. No, the monsters will fuck each other up.
Yeah,
like to the point like where
biting each
where
other.
The one you're fighting will get beat up so much it'll actually be weaker. It'll visibly be weaker.
Yeah,
because they took so much damage.
Yeah, you'll see chunks fly off. You'll see them like not be able to walk. My favorite thing though was also, it would like go away and then sleep. And like, my friend Cotterman like sneaking up on him, and they're like sleeping like little like a puppy would sleep.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, you're sleeping? Let me chop off that tail. And he's like trying to chop off the tail of this thing.
If Cotterman, I hope Cotterman knows that he gets more materials if he captures them.
Oh, really?
So when they're sleeping, he has to go put a trap down, and it traps the monster, and then you got to throw 2 tranquilizer bombs at it.
Yeah.
And it knocks him out.
Right.
And so you actually get more materials to build your weapons and your armor.
I don't think he knows that. I think he's just fixated in killing.
I'm gonna have to get Cotterman's PSN name, because I'm gonna have to show him how to do this. So no, it's great that you brought that up. They have really great AI. I mean, some of these monsters are like just the behavior of it's really great. I mean, that T-Rex guy, you can actually cut off its tail, and then when you cut off its tail, you can harvest his tail, and then he'll still fight you. But
he has no tail.
But he has no tail, so he won't. He can't tail swipe you. Yeah. But he can still tail swipe you with his tail nub.
Yeah.
There's other monsters, like there's one called the Great Gigaris that is like this. Basically, looks like a giant iguana with dreadlocks, and he will eat things and get really big, and he get like a giant belly.
Yeah.
And what he do is with that belly, he would come and try to like belly flop on you, and then you're like, oh, you missed me. Nope, because he'll roll at you.
Right.
And he'll crush you. And then I just kind of long, but one thing I did want to touch upon, and I think what makes this game so great is the feedback loop with the way you gain armor and weapons. So yes, like Chuck and Des was saying, in this game you fight monsters, and you use the material that drops from the monsters to build better weapons and better gear.
Right.
The great thing,
Gear.
You build Metal Gear. The good thing about that is that if there's a certain weapon you want, like let's say, because each weapon has like weapon trees, they have their own traits. You can get like a poison weapon or like a fire weapon. Like Connorman was fighting the T-Rex, and he was all fire.
Yeah.
There's actually a water weapon. If he goes and he fights a water monster, like this fish, he can use that material to build a water weapon that is good against the fire T-Rex, because the fire T-Rex.
Naturally, you would make that connection.
So it's like fucking rock, paper, scissors.
Rock, paper. It's like, what is it, Battle Beasts? You guys remember Battle Beasts?
No.
There were these like, I can't believe furries don't know about this. Battle Beasts were these like sort of cyborg animals, and they had these little emblems that you rub off.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things you rub, and then it would show what it was behind it, and you show fire, water, wood,
mm-hmm.
and like that's how you would determine who would win. So fire, fire burns wood, obviously beats wood. Water beats fire, but then wood floats on water.
So wood beats water.
Yeah, I don't know what. Literally, they showed this like little animated sequence, like fire, wood burns fire, and like would burn like the trees around him, and then water, fire, water puts out fire, and then looks at wood and like chops a tree, and then just kind of lands on the water, like wood floats on water, and apparently, I guess that beats water somehow.
I guess wood beats water.
Yeah, I think it more like the tree fell on top of him too.
So the feedback loop is actually, the gameplay feedback loop is actually really great. You're always trying to hunt that bigger and bigger monster, so you can you can capture him and carve him and make a better fucking sword, so you can kill the next monster.
Well, it was also cool that you could go on top of him and just start.
Yeah, you can mount monsters. There's a lot of customization in this game. There's a lot of armors you can craft. There's the skill trees for the weapons get crazy and crazy.
There's a funny little cutscene where you're eating.
Oh no! Before I get to that cutscene. The other thing too is there's a lot of weapons, and that's the one thing that is kind of the one thing that makes or breaks people with these games, is that they have about 14 weapons you can use.
Yeah.
Each of them play differently, like completely different. So, for example, I'm using a longsword, which is just a giant samurai, like just a giant sword. It's a long sword. It's a long sword.
Like, is it like Cloud kind of thing?
Yeah, and it moves. The way it moves is it's slow, but it can combo hits with it really easily. Right. They also have dual blades, which are really really fast. They don't do as much damage, but you can your speed output is really really fast.
So I guess the WWE pro wrestler Asuka, who just won the Women's Royal Rumble. She plays that character class on Monster Hunter.
The dual blades?
Yeah, and apparently she's pretty darn good on it.
I'm going to befriend her on PS4 so we can play together.
No one is ready for Asuka. That's what she says.
Duly noted. So there's a lot of weapon variety. But I think the best thing about this game, though, honestly, is the goddamn cutscenes when you get food.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That was the most hilarious thing I've ever seen.
So in this
game, I want to eat like that.
So in this game, when you before you go on a hunt, you can actually eat food that boosts your stats, also your like health and stamina regeneration.
The preparation of the food's hilarious too.
There's and the food is cooked by the palicos, which are basically cats, like sentient cats.
Yeah.
And they help you out.
Mm-hmm.
But the head chef cat
calicos
is one-eyed. He's got one eye.
Right.
He wears a goddamn fucking bandana. And he's got like helpers in his kitchen, and they make you food, and the food looks so fucking delicious.
It does look great.
It looks awesome. I would tell everyone to check out. I'm sure they have the videos on YouTube. Yeah. Go to YouTube and check out the videos of the palicos, making meals. It looks so goddamn good. I can't recommend this game enough. I will say though, even though this game is it's a lot more accessible than the previous entries. If you've been curious about these, I would say check it out. Rent it. Definitely rent it. I would even suggest you buy it if you do like it. I say definitely buy it.
It's like $60 now. Right?
Yeah, I will caution though. This game, it can be a bit dense.
Yeah.
And you will have to really stick with it and really kind of dive into the systems.
Well, yeah, so many people have, like,
especially with the weapons,
yeah.
like especially figuring out like which weapon you would like to use.
Uh-huh.
Really just get comfortable with it.
All right.
The great thing about this is they don't you can always change weapons.
Right.
You don't have to stick to one weapon.
So, like, this game is widely successful. It's very dense. Apparently people are loving the gameplay. Mm-hmm. The average game that, like, comes out that becomes successful, they usually get like a sequel in like the next couple of years. For example, Battlefront. I was surprised the sequel came out for Battlefront. I mean, maybe I shouldn't be, but
yeah.
I was like, wow, that early? It's like, why don't they just send updates and new missions and such? How likely is this gonna come with like a sequel or update?
Here's the thing: if this was any other company, the sequel would probably be coming out in 2 years.
Right.
But it's Capcom.
Yeah.
And just like you kind of see how they did with Resident Evil, I think Capcom. I think actually starting with Resident Evil 7, I think Capcom is taking a slower approach to their releases.
Right. Which is a good thing.
Especially their more popular franchises.
Mm-hmm.
You saw the way they treated Resident Evil 7.
Biohazard.
You saw the way they're treating actually Mega Man. They're working on a new Mega Man.
Right. Which is apparently Mega Man is going to be a new skin on this thing.
Yeah,
too,
and Monster Hunter is one of their biggest franchises too. I mean, it's really huge in Japan. I mean, they're fucking nuts over Monster Hunter.
Right.
So like I said, in the US it was still pretty niche, but this game has exploded.
Yeah.
Now, one thing Capcom has come out and said is that they are not going to charge you DLC.
Oh, that's cool.
Anything they're going to release, like if they're going to release new areas, it's supposed to be free. The only thing they're going to charge you, though, is cosmetics. There are skins you can wear, like, right now there's samurai armor you can wear. It's just a skin that goes over whatever equipment you have. They're already announced that they're going to do a Mega Man skin for your Palico. So your Palico will actually look like 8-bit Mega Man shooting things.
That'd be awesome.
They also announced
that's the only reason I'd buy that game.
They also announced Ryu's going to be in this. They're actually going to have you. I think you're going to be able to dress up as Ryu and do Hadoukens. Another thing they did a cross promotion with Horizon Zero Dawn, is they actually had your Palico.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
They you were able to build armor to make your Palico look like one of the Watchers, which is one of the one of the enemies in Horizon Zero Dawn. Later this month, they're also supposed to let you build armor to make you look like the protagonist from Horizon Zero Dawn.
Right.
So they're doing a lot of cross promotion. I mean,
which is kind of cool because like the worlds are sort of similar. I mean, this is organic monsters, whereas that was robotic monsters.
Yeah, and this is huge. This game is like huge. I mean, Capcom loves. I'm sure they love the reception they got.
Yeah.
So I would highly recommend this game. Stick to it. Again, it's going to take a while for it to click, but once you find that weapon you can use smoothly and you start getting really good at it, everything's going to start falling into place.
Right.
You're not going to struggle as much. The online is great. It's a little wonky, but again, that's usually the par for the course for a lot of Japanese games. Is they don't really their online system is kind of secondary, so it can be a little weird. But I would say, definitely recommend it.
It's more the journey kind of thing.
No, it's more killing monsters, man.
I guess more.
Just stabbing them in the face.
That could be
repeatedly.
Okay, speaking of games, our next topic here is a Kickstarter called the NES Maker. This was started by a guy named Joe Granato. It's currently open now, but it's going to close tomorrow. So far, if my estimates are right here, they've gathered $251,000, $251,318. They're trying to reach a level 8 goal, which includes memory mapping. I don't know what any of this stuff means, but that's the concept of the NES Maker, is that it's a game-making software where you can create basically NES-style Nintendo ROMs. And there are different modules that you can create. You can create an adventure game like, Legend of Zelda. You can make a platformer like, Mega Man. You can make a side-scrolling brawler like Double Dragon. I think they include RPG and shooter modules. And it's a really interesting thing because this is like something that you grew up as a child and you always wanted to do, but you would have to learn some, like, I guess, archaic way of coding to create a game like this. But the NES Maker, I guess, originated from some people trying to create their own sort of Nintendo ROM, but like a homebrew. But they noticed that, like, they had to create a software that could be, modular enough so that they can, get through the coding part really fast. Because they didn't want to sit there and make it the old way, because that takes a lot of time, and you have to have a lot of knowledge and stuff. They wanted to make a graphical interface that was easier for them to create this type of game. And then they kind of realized, you know what, this would probably make a good project. People might actually really, really enjoy creating a game like this. Fat Boy commented, Hi, Fat Boy. How's it going? Thanks for joining us. But I mean, they're in their last day, and they're trying to reach this final goal. They've actually, exceeded a lot of their goals. This is, I think, one of their last stretch goals, or maybe there could be more. But I'm totally into this. I actually already gave I think like $100 because I wanted to get a certain award, for for this Kickstarter, and I want to make Nintendo games. I mean, like, I've always wanted to make Nintendo games. I just didn't have like the technical know-how to do it. And this will give you tools. This will give you some assets, and it will actually, to a degree, you can create your own assets, whether it be like your own pixels or level design and stuff like that. And it's very intuitive. I've seen a couple of videos, and it doesn't seem too hard. If you're, I know something about Photoshop, and that those skills can transfer over to this, where you could actually create, a multitude of different assets, for whatever game you intend to make. Recently, they made a fix because you can create a ROM that can go with emulators. Or you can, I think the end goal for this is that you can create a ROM that will eventually, you can save to a sort of like a USB like cartridge, and that way you can actually put it in the real Nintendo. But it would only work on one particular emulator because of their mapping system. Recently, they figured out how to kind of get through all that and have it play on most emulators. I ended up playing a game that they put out called Troll Burner, which they gave for free to people who support the Kickstarter. And it's a very simple platformer where you go around burning trolls, and it's really hilarious because right when you walk into a room, they'll make a comment about how this is impossible, or what the problem this is. Kind of basically cutting down the naysayers who just say that you're not supposed to do it this way, or it's not going to work, kind of thing. And it was a very simple game. They had a little contest where you could actually win I think a hard copy of the Troll Burner, one of the awards that were kind of in the $256 dollar range, to see how many people the most trolls you burn, then you would get some kind of prize during a period of time. I only did like 37. I wasn't really great with that game. Some people did 400 and something, which I was like, Jesus Christ. And then I tried cheating. It didn't work either. I'm a terrible cheater because I don't win. But
welcome to Trump's America. Nobody wins.
Yeah, apparently no one. But I think it's a kind of a neat little project. I haven't been so psyched about a Kickstarter in such a long time, because this is something that I kind of want to go, and I kind of think about like some of the games that I played that didn't come out with sequels. For example, as you know, I'm a big Star Trek fan. One of my favorite Nintendo games back in the day was Star Trek 25th Anniversary, which was sort of like an adventure game mixed with a little bit of arcade style of fighting and stuff like that. There was actually a really poor first-person view of where the Enterprise was fighting Romulans, and then you can beam onto planets and stuff like that. One of my hang-ups, though, of that game is that it's really short, and like there's like all these planets you can go to, but if you can really only go to 4, and if you go to any of the other ones, Spock will just say, "Hey, we're not. This is not helping. We should go back to the ship and go try another planet." And like that made the game kind of limiting, and like I always kind of would want a picture of like, what if you could do that again, but all the planets can be visited, and there could be a point to each planet, not just nah, we're not supposed to go here, and like it's like that trial and error thing, and like kind of fix that problem that was in old Nintendo games. But and then I'm thinking about other games. Like there wasn't a lot of horror games that were on the original Nintendo Entertainment System, and maybe one of my favorite things that I just recently played was a Resident Evil RPG, which I thought was actually better than Resident Evil 1. It was kind of like sort of a top-down kind of thing where you would get into battles with zombies, and it would be like all turn-based, and you actually could use Barry as part of one of your party members. So it would be like Barry, Jill, and Chris, and eventually you would pick up Sherry, I think is her name. Rebecca Chambers. That's right. Sherry's in the second game, and like that made more sense to me because like why would you like okay, let's split up in this huge mansion that we know is full of monsters and different other what do they call them? BOWs. Yeah. Like that never really made sense to me. It's like, no, we should probably stick together because
safety in numbers
kind of thing. Which I mean, like I'd love to see a game like that.
That's actually one thing I liked about when they did Resident Evil Online.
Yeah.
Like those Resident Evil Online games. Those were fun because you did the safety numbers. Like you all got together and like we're taking out zombies and stuff.
Communications was kind of limited, but I mean, I wish they would like make games like that, and like it's the 8-bit era, and that's the era I kind of grew up in. So it'd be a nice little thing to create your own games and put them out there for people to play. They say that like if you're going to use this though, that you shouldn't really use assets from different games. So don't create your own version of like Super Mario Brothers and use Super Mario Brothers as your theme.
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people though who are going to turn to.
I know they're going to do it.
Well, I was going to say there's going to be a lot of people who don't necessarily want to program these games.
Yeah.
They like you were saying, they have the Photoshop knowledge. They actually they can probably get some work creating sprites and things like that for people.
And that'd be great too. I mean, it'd be really interesting of like what you could do with this tool. And it's a very intuitive tool. You don't have to be an expert in this. You just have to kind of think of the game that you want to make and then create it. And it looks a lot of fun to do. Like I tried to look into ROM hacking a while back ago, and it's just like I just don't have the technical know-how to do it. It's just a very hard thing to do, and I have a lot of respect for people who create ROM hacks. The one I recently play and still play to this day is Castlevania. The hell is it called? Castlevania and the Holy. I was going to call it the Holy Grail, but give me 1 second. I think it's the Holy Symbol. Images. Gosh darn it! If you guys know what it's called, I mean, I actually did a playthrough of it, but it was a great game. I really dug it. It was Castlevania, but it had like original music that was also sort of like some of them were covers of the original Castlevania stuff, but there was apparently some a commenter told me that there actually was a lot of original music in there too. So like that was a really interesting game to see play out or to play because it had a lot of different mechanics. You actually had to find keys to get through doors and stuff like that. And I had a lot of fun playing it. Castlevania and the Holy Relics, that's what it's called. And like they just changed one little thing and then gave us a lot of cool different enemies. It was a ROM hack of the first Castlevania, and I thought it was much more fun than the first Castlevania. It was a lot easier too.
Mm.
Like Castlevania is a pretty hard game. Like some people will just tell me like, no, it's not that hard and blah 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 blah. But
no, it's difficult.
It's difficult. And I can beat it. It's just I die like 9 million times on Dracula.
Dracula's a jerk.
Yeah, he is. He turns into that goblin or not? Was it a gargoyle? I guess.
I think so. Does he?
It's like a weird Nosferatu gargoyle thing with a bigger head. Kind of giant gremlin, maybe? It's like the flying gremlin from Gremlins 2. Always reminds me of that Key and Peele skit.
Oh, the boardroom meeting?
Yeah.
Such
a vegetable gremlin.
I like when they talk about the girl gremlin, too.
Yeah. A girl gremlin.
I love how Joe Dante just like...
Did the director of Gremlins 2 and Gremlins
basically
Run?
said, like, that's almost kind of how it went.
Yeah.
Like, everyone was just fucking throwing shit out there.
A gremlin who's intelligent.
God. Goddamn new batch.
I love the new batch.
New batch is great.
Yeah. Especially when I'm trying to buy it. But yeah, that Kickstarter is going on right now. They're nearing that goal, their level 8 goal, and I recommend people just giving money to them because I want that final goal.
Give them money.
Yeah, give them money. I don't know. How do you feel? I mean, you didn't really grow up with the 8-bit Nintendo. You grew up more the Super NES, right?
No, I grew up with both.
Oh,
I grew up with the NES. Yeah. Well, the NES came like late when I was like younger. So
right.
I mainly what I remember from the NES game days were Castlevania 3 and the Batman game.
Yeah.
The Batman, Batman the movie game, the Tim Burton.
The Tim Burton one, yeah.
Yeah, that and I know we had a Godzilla game that was really hard.
Oh, the first Godzilla game?
Yeah.
Monsters and Monsters.
I don't know. I was looking at the Kickstarter and it looks interesting. I mean, it'd be cool to see what people can come up with. I think I'm interested in it.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in how the software will actually work.
Right. Well, I'll once I get my hands on it because I did contribute, I'll let you know. It's great because you can test it on an emulator. You can port it to a USB cartridge where you can actually put it into a console. I might get a retro console. I'm not going to obviously get the original Nintendo. I'll probably get those those newer ones that work a lot better and can connect HDMI. Probably not one of those fancier ones that you can stream with and such. I don't want to get the that one where you can play like 8 different like systems.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a collector. I'm not a retro. I do own some Nintendo cartridges, but that's only because I kind of inherited them from Tiny Dinosaurs a long time ago. Basically, he left them. We used to work together. He left them at work, and then I say, "Hey, do you want these back?" And he's just like, "No, you can have them."
What did he leave? Or
like a bunch of Nintendo cartridges.
Oh.
Or, I'm sorry, Nintendo game packs. I always thought it was weird that Nintendo Power would call them that because I don't
game
know.
Packs?
Yeah, I never knew anyone who called them game packs.
Me neither.
Yeah,
I don't know why they didn't call them cartridges.
Yeah, like parents would call them Nintendo tapes. I just call them carts.
I never knew anyone who called them packs.
Yeah, but Nintendo would really want everyone to call them game packs. Like their cardboard thing. What's that called?
What cardboard thing?
It's that weird thing that they have with the Nintendo Switch.
The Lambo?
Yeah.
Or the Labo?
Labo or whatever.
Labo, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what it's called, Labo. Nintendo Labo.
Sounds like Gabbo.
God, the thing is, I don't know what to really think about that. I mean, I don't have a Switch either, so I can't really say, but
I guess I dig the innovation, but like what's the purpose of this? Who's this appeal to?
I see what they're trying to do. I think they're trying to introduce those kind of like coding, those programming, like it's basically trying to introduce people to programming.
Right.
But I mean,
just make an NES Maker.
But the cardboard kind of seems a bit excessive.
Right.
Like,
I mean, I maybe they're trying to like
it seems expensive. Like I'm gonna pay $80 for a fucking piece of cardboard.
Right. Maybe they're trying to like kind of narrow in that what's it called, Minecraft kind of audience.
Possibly.
Because that's all about building, I guess. But that's like, free.
I don't really have an opinion on it because one, I don't have a Nintendo Switch, and two, I haven't even touched it. I haven't even seen it.
Yeah, I'm so close in considering getting one.
I feel like me and you probably should just get one together.
Right.
Because I don't want to spend. I can't drop the 300 plus to get the Switch and accessories.
Right. It's gonna be like when Bart and Milhouse and Martin got Radioactive Man #1.
I know. Me, you, and Tiny Dinosaur is gonna go in on a Switch, and we'll be like, and I'm just gonna be crying because I just wanted that one baseball card with the sideburns. I mean, I was considering it. I was actually going to bring that up with you. Like, we can do the Switch. But, yeah, I don't know, man. Like,
then we're going to all fight on like, who's going to have it the most.
I don't think we would fight. I'd probably just be like, no, keep it at your house. Because if we keep it at my house, my kids are probably going to break it.
Right.
You can keep the dock. I'll keep the tablet thing.
Right.
All right, moving on. And then we got Star Trek. I'm actually interested in Star Trek, too, because...
The Wrath of Khan? Yeah, it's a great film.
Oh, yeah. Wrath of Khan is great.
Can't believe that came out in 1983.
Look, you know what makes Wrath of Khan? It's fucking Ricardo Montalban.
Yeah.
God, that guy in his chest.
Yeah. He's
huge. I like women, but I would totally have sex with him.
I mean, he's paired with that voice.
Yeah. Oh, my God. That voice just melts. Just gets my loins all tingled.
I've more than hurt you, Kirk.
He's so great.
Buried alive.
All right.
Okay.
Star Trek Discovery.
Okay, so I haven't been watching. Okay, so recently around my birthday, a friend of mine who he basically knows that I didn't want to get the CBS network. So for my birthday, he gave me a year's supply of the CBS network. So like I thanked him, and now I can watch Star Trek Discovery. And so I basically watched these shows along with reruns of Taxi.
Nice.
Have you ever seen Taxi?
No.
It's a great show. You like Cheers, right?
I did.
Right.
And then I stopped watching Cheers because I got sick of the whole Diane and...
Right. So Taxi is kind of like Cheers without that.
Okay.
Taxi is, very like...
I did like Frasier, though.
Right. I love Frasier.
Like
Frasier Crane,
like when they introduced fucking Kelsey Grammer in Cheers, it's fucking hilarious. Like,
no, Frasier was great, and I thought
I've never seen Frasier though.
Yeah,
but
Frasier the show, you haven't seen it?
No, I've never seen Frasier the show. But when they introduced Frasier to, when they introduced Kelsey Grammer to Cheers, it was great.
You remember that episode with Sideshow Bob and his brother Cecil?
Yeah,
that's Frasier basically.
Really?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's great. I mean, without the slapstick comedy.
He must have had so much fun doing that episode with David Hyde Pierce.
Yeah,
like,
you know how they're like fighting over the top bunk or whatever?
Yeah, that's them.
That's pretty much them.
They must have had so much fun.
Yeah. So I've been watching Taxi a lot because Star Trek Discovery, I don't want to say, here's the thing. I don't think it's that bad. I don't think it's that great. And I've seen this sort of like polarizing view of this show. Some people hate it, and other people praise it, and it's weird because to me it's this like sort of in between.
Wait, is it like Last Jedi where you either love it or you hate it?
I mean, I guess, but I loved Last Jedi. I'm in this middle ground where it's kind of lukewarm, but not in the way that I don't find it boring. Because I feel lukewarm about certain Star Trek movies. Like for example, Star Trek 1: The Motion Picture. I'm very lukewarm with that. It's I appreciate its like place in history because without it we wouldn't have all these other movies. But I also know that it's a very boring film and it doesn't remind me of the original show. The sequel, Star Trek 2, reminds me of the show. Star Trek done by J.J. Abrams reminds me of the show. Whether you guys think that's correct or not. But it is correct. It is like the show.
Okay.
This Discovery, it's not like Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look-wise, it looks, very updated. Some of the tech they use in the show is something that you can question, like, well, they never had that back then, or, how is this? Because the idea of the show is supposed to take place before the Next Generation. Or, I'm sorry, before the original Star Trek. Like 10 years before. It takes place in the same sort of like prime reality where the original Kirk and Spock did their 5-year mission.
So this is after Enterprise.
This is after Enterprise, correct? And this is supposed to happen during the time when the actual USS Enterprise is captained by Christopher Pike, and he's doing his little 5-year mission.
Is this crew doing their own 5-year mission?
This crew is doing something different. This crew, so in the beginning, Sequina, I think Williams is her name. She plays Michael Burnham, who is, I guess you could say, sort of a surrogate sister to Spock, because she's actually raised by Sarek, Spock's dad. And the idea is that Sarek wanted to raise a human with the Vulcan way of life. So she comes off very Vulcan sometimes. But she's human, basically. And Sarek's trying to make a point that humans can be as enlightened as the Vulcan people if they just try. There's a reason why he married a Vulcan woman, and he had a child that's half Vulcan, half human. So she's serving aboard the ship that's captained by Michelle Yeoh's character, Captain Giorgio. I don't know. Anyways, it's called the Shenandoah, and what happens is that they get into a conflict with Klingons. And they don't really look like the Klingons from the original series. They don't look like the Klingons from the Next Generation. They don't even look like the Klingons from J.J. Abrams' Star Trek. They have a lot of people say Mass Effect look. They're some of them are blue. They have this I guess. I'm not really too up in arms about that, just because Klingons have been changing their look since the original series. So I don't really care about that stuff. And quite honestly, they do kind of act like villainous Klingons. Mm-hmm. Some fans are mad about that. Why are they villainous? It's well, because when they were originally introduced, they were kind of bad guys. They were supposed to represent Russia back in the day. So basically, Michael Burnham starts this huge conflict with Klingons. And a war ensues. And then that's the first 2 episodes. The USS Discovery is nowhere in the pilot episode. And what they did, too, is they showed pretty much what I call half the pilot on television. And the second half you had to catch on the CBS network. Or the CBS
Jesus
online.
Christ.
Yeah.
They really want the show to fail, don't they?
Yeah, I guess. But, the thing is that some people tuned out because they were just what the hell's going on? It's I have to watch this second part online. They'd said it's free. You can sign up for free and watch it. I didn't know they were airing it on television, honestly. I thought they were just going to do it on the CBS online platform. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they did it. They presented the thing in both mediums to try and people to get to watch the show. So the third episode is where we see the USS Discovery. It's the ship that has this thing called the Spore Drive, which basically travels through this thing called the Mycelium Network, and it can basically appear anywhere it wants to. It's this weird sort of hyperspace kind of speed, but you can really appear anywhere in the known galaxy if you have the ability. And it's not like they press a button and it happens. They actually have to connect a person to it, and that person has to navigate. And obviously, it's not good for that person to do. Before they were doing it on an alien, and then they found out that the chief engineer can actually do it himself, but at great costs, because he starts acting weird and stuff like that. And then it's about Discovery trying to circumvent the Klingon war, because the Klingons have cloaking devices now, and their ships are invisible, and they'll things that they would do is they would ram cloak ships into star bases. Or attack colonies and yada 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 yada. So this entire war is happening, and eventually the spore drive leads them into the mirror universe, which is like sort of like, that's when Spock, it's like the alternate dimension where like the Federation is the Terran Empire, and they're more villainous and like, enslaving aliens and such. And then they return back to Federation space. Like in between, they figure out how to like circumvent the Klingon cloaking device. But when they return back to the Federation space, it's like 9 months later, and the Klingons have annexed a lot of their Federation territory. And so it's like about them trying to now, like the finale coming up is about them trying to, save the Federation and stop the Klingons. I mean, one thing I'll say was really good about the show is that it looks really expensive. The special effects, the cinematography, the lighting, I like all that stuff. It looks really good. It doesn't look cheap. It doesn't really look television. It looks very feature film like quality. The design of the Federation ships, I actually kind of do like. I understand why Voyager Discovery is designed the way it is, because of its like special sort of warp drive. Hey, what's up, Vic? How's it going? I don't like the Klingon designs because it's just like it's too much of a departure of what we've seen already. In fact, they look downright like grotesque. But like, I get it. They want to update it and they wanted to make it look more alien. Klingons speak Klingon in their ships. They don't speak English, which I thought was actually a pretty good like choice there.
So they cut to a Klingon ship and they're speaking Klingon.
Yeah,
they obviously have subtitles.
They have subtitles, yeah. And I was like, that's a good choice.
Yeah.
Like, I like that. But like some Klingons can speak English and they'll like speak English to the humans. I was going to say Dwight Schrute, but Rainn Wilson is actually in the show, and he plays a character from the original Star Trek, Hardcore Fenton Mudd, a.k.a. Harry Mudd, which is sort of like a scoundrel, like con artist. And I thought he did a really good job. And he's not exactly the same as the original actor who portrayed him, but it's good enough homage that like I can say, yeah, that's Harry Mudd. And I enjoyed that part of it. It's a very exciting show. There's a lot of action in it. The part I kind of don't like about it is that it seems to be a show that constantly borrows, I would say, cliches from other television shows. I don't want to say cliche, maybe just borrows way too much from other television shows. It
seems a bit derivative.
Very derivative. Like I feel that like Michael Burnham I could just call her Rick Grimes. Because she makes all these really bad Rick Grimes decisions, like that just put him in more hot water. The Klingons, remind me of like the Dothraki. They remind me of stuff from Game of Thrones. There's even a scene when they go to the Mirror Universe and they find Michelle Yeoh's character. She's like the Empress of the Terran Empire. She has this introduction that's exactly like Daenerys' introduction in that one episode of Game of Thrones where they just said all her little like titles. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, that's really derivative. And it ends with like Lost-esque kind of Lost-esque kind of cliffhangers to the next episode. And I get it, like people they need to adopt the new serialized way of storytelling, but I don't know if they've kind of adopted it a little too much. So it just feels like that it's a pastiche of other shows put into one show. And oh yeah, there's Star Trek stuff in here. There's ships and stuff. So I think that's the reason why I'm not really digging it as much, because Star Trek used to be an original concept to me. When I would watch an episode of Star Trek, or when I do watch an episode of Star Trek, any of the recent ones, they're more derivative of itself. Like sometimes episodes of Voyager would seem like episodes of like sort of imitations of Next Generation. Enterprise had the worst trouble with that. Like their first 3 seasons, it felt like they were very derivative of what they already did in Next Generation. Deep Space Nine, they were a bit derivative in terms of like some of the overall design and production look of the production, but eventually they like grew out of that. They did serialized storytelling, and they even like got out of the comfort zone of like how Starfleet officers should be viewed. I feel that the show is trying to do the same thing, but I don't think it's as successful just because it's like more it's thinking, let's do Game of Thrones in space. Have all these warring families. This is like probably the first Star Trek where they showed actual nudity. Klingon boobs.
Nice.
Yep.
Do they have ridges on their boobs?
Not that I could see. Not that I've been inspecting it that much. I have been, yes.
Do you think that's a thing with Star Trek now, though? Is that, they're kind of... Star Trek isn't its own sci-fi anymore. Right. They're kind of borrowing...
The thing is, I don't...
Like themes, or they're deriving some of the Star Trek... I feel like that's kind of the criticism I've heard from Star Trek for the past few years now. Right. Like, especially with, when Abrams started the new Trek, is that Star Trek isn't Star Trek anymore. It's basically Star Wars now, or
here's the thing. I don't really. I think yes, like J.J. Abrams brought some of the excitement of Star Wars into his Star Trek, but I don't feel that Star Trek is anywhere close to what you would see in Star Wars. I felt Last Jedi was something that you would see more in Star Trek, just because of the conflict, the internal conflict between the crew and stuff like that. Because if you really look at the J.J. Abrams stuff, and there's a great video done by I forgot what the name is, and he talks about how a lot of the stuff that J.J. Abrams does is more derivative to the original show, but at a higher budget. Like if they had a high enough budget and like a stunt team, people doing fight choreography, if they had all that stuff, this is what it would look like. Like, because like if you look at you could say the other pseudo reboot, the motion picture. If you look at that Enterprise, like in the interior, how the people are acting, it's a very sort of like monochromatic look. Everyone's wearing grays. There's the color of Star Trek is not there. They don't seem to be joking around as much. It seems very sort of almost like 2001: Space Odyssey. But if you watch J.J. Abrams Star Trek, they're joking around. It's very colorful interior. People are running, left and right. That's something the running part, you don't really see a lot in Star Wars. I mean, yeah, there's that scene where, Han Solo's running through, but like if you watch any of the prequels, no one's running in the prequel stuff unless they're fighting. So like that look I feel is still Star Trek, but like people are looking at the wrong thing. They're like, this doesn't look like Next Generation. Of course it doesn't look like Next Generation, because the original Star Trek was never Next Generation. Next Generation became its own thing. It became the sitting in meetings and talking about the geopolitics of whatever planet. The original Star Trek, sometimes they would do that, but most of the time you'd see Kirk punching someone. You'd see them like having a little adventure here and there. You would have like scenes, and like this is what people don't see in Into Darkness, is that in Into Darkness they talk about stuff that's present day, like the price of security. What's more important, the ideals that you were raised upon in the organization that you believe in, or your personal vendettas? And like what I loved about like at the end of Into Darkness is that like they don't kill Khan at the end. They kind of they get over that. They like, even Kirk says like, that's not our way. We don't do that. And then Beyond comes out and they just do that. They like regress. That's why I'm not a big fan of Beyond, because Beyond feels like a Next Generation movie. Not the show. It feels like one of the 3 Next Generation movies that came out, or I guess there was 4, but the ones that only had their crew on it. Because there was a catastrophe, someone wants revenge. In and itself, that's derivative to Star Trek too.
It seemed very, very by the book.
Yeah. Like, I felt that's what I felt too.
It was a very by the book.
I have some kind of scientific way of stopping the threat. Okay, and how would it look like? A bunch of ships blow up while you play Beastie Boys. And whatever. They wanted to do that. Go ahead. But like I feel that this show is what people are talking about. Like when they say that, oh, it's like Star Wars. I guess you could say that. I mean, there's ship battles and stuff like that, but I think they're very different than Star Wars. They're more capital ships fighting each other. Not a whole lot of fighters. But I feel that it's more. Yeah, it just gets to it. It borrows from too many television shows I've already seen, and like I don't see the identity there. Now, on the other hand, Orville borrows a lot from Next Generation. Like one of the things I don't like about Orville is how it's shot. It looks kind of boring. Like the lighting is really flat. Some people say, well, it's a comedy. It's like, I'd say, yeah, it's a comedy, but like I've seen The Office lit with more contrast than Orville, and that takes place in an office. But yeah, but like people are kind of like saying that it's either really good because they're just like we said, it's that weird like fanaticism towards whatever this franchise does. Like I have a Facebook site that's devoted to Star Trek, the first edition card game. One of the things I left on there, it's the last thing I left on there because I kind of got sick of like dealing with the nerds, is that I am not watching Discovery because I don't feel that I shouldn't buy the CBS network just so I can watch a show. Like, but I get that why they have it. I just wish that I could just buy the show and not get any of their other content because I don't care about that stuff.
Are they going to release this as a standalone thing though? Are they going to you think they're going to release Blu-rays and stuff like that?
I think I mean they obviously will because they want to cash in the people who are going to buy it, because obviously there are a lot of people who are fanboys of this and just bought the CBS network. Now they actually have kind of renegotiated the deal where they are going to offer it on Amazon, so you can buy the episodes on Amazon from week to week. That's how I watch the new X-Files. I don't care to catch it on Fox. I'd rather get it digitally and watch it the day after. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's how people want to catch their content. But like some people just love the show just because, oh, this is such a great episode. Oh, this is such a great episode. And I'm like, it was an okay episode. I'll admit some episodes were better than others, but I don't think it really hit it out of the park. It's nothing I've not seen on, like I said, Walking Dead or Game of Thrones, or I'm sure like people will find connections to Westworld. I don't really watch that, or Mr. Robot, or any of these other shows. But yeah, it feels very imitative of other shows. And yeah, maybe I'm obsessing a little too much about it, but I'm a fan of the show, or I'm a fan of Star Trek. And then on the other hand, like some people are just dogging it just because they can't get past the Klingon look. Like, that doesn't look like Klingon.
I mean, they don't.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. No.
But yeah, I mean, I could show you pictures of Klingons and like, well, they haven't really looked the same in a while. I mean, it wasn't until like I think again, I got to figure out what this guy's video.
I feel like that's what's happening now too with these shows and series and like these. Essentially, these essentially IPs. It's like they, the same criticism you're hearing about Star Trek.
Yeah,
I've also heard about Last Jedi. It's like, oh, Luke's supposed to be really powerful.
Right.
Like, that's not Luke. Luke wouldn't have never turned to a grumpy Gus. And
right.
It's like,
I guess they said the same thing about Captain Kirk. Why is Captain Kirk a jerk in the new Abrams Star Trek? It's like, well, he wasn't raised with a father like the one that we know.
Yeah. But it's also, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like people are still stuck on these, nostalgic versions of what they thought those characters were supposed to be.
Right. Well, okay, so there's this guy named E.C. Henry. He does analysis on sci-fi. The two he concentrates on most is Star Trek and Star Wars because they're, like, quite honestly, they're the two most popular right now. I mean, you could say Doctor Who too, but I don't think he's done one of those videos yet. One of the things that he brings up that I think is a very important thing is that every time we see a Klingon or a Romulan on Next Generation, we always see the military class. Or we just only see one part of their culture. Does it make sense that like a entire alien world would only have one type of culture? If we look at our world right now, I mean, you have you have Mexican descent, your Hispanic descent in yours. I have Asian, Korean descent in mine. There's similarities, but we have different cultures. I mean, we wouldn't dress the same, or or ancestry wouldn't dress the same or act exactly the same.
You did wear a sombrero that one time, though.
Yeah, only because you wear the rice patty hat.
That's true.
I
like rice.
Yeah, but like it kind of says like, okay, on the Enterprise, you have people of different, of different races, and they have their own personalities and their own customs. Why can't that be the same in other worlds?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why can't there? Like, maybe there are different types of Klingons. Maybe there's Klingons with no ridges, which we found out in Enterprise. Why? We found out maybe there's like different sects of Klingons where they're a little bit more heftier build.
Mm-hmm. Maybe there's Klingons who don't want to be angry and fighting all the time. They just want to they just want to be nice to everyone.
Right. Do we expect that all black people have to listen to rap music from Earth? That would be racism.
That is racism.
Yeah.
Or that all Koreans listen to K-pop.
Right.
They don't.
Right. Or all Klingons, they like gach.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't. Maybe some of them don't like gach.
Goddamn, you're your goddamn Klingon.
Well, I'm just trying to make a point here. That Star Trek is a broad world, and also obviously the world is always changing, so we can't always if this looked like 1960 Star Trek, I might have liked it a little better, but I know who wouldn't like it. It's like the new viewer. And that brings me to this point. I feel that the reason why the show is such a pastiche of like different television shows is to rope in new viewers. If that's the case, I have no idea why they would choose the CBS, all access streaming network to do that. Because it doesn't seem like a new viewer would want to pay for another service. Like, why not just put it on a Netflix or a Hulu, something they know, or an Amazon Prime? It doesn't matter. But they're kind of intent in just creating their own identity. And I think they have another show on there, The Good Wife, that I guess is fairly successful. And they want to create this sort of audience where people will just go to CBS to watch their reruns of Taxi, reruns of I think it was the first season of Beverly Hills 90210. Only the first season.
Why only the first season?
I don't know. There's 116 episodes of Taxi, but there's only 50 episodes of Taxi on the CBS network.
I'm surprised they even made their own standalone OTT channel because doesn't seem like they have a lot of content.
Well, the thing is it's a very hodgepodge of content. I'm a fan of I Love Lucy. I really dig that sitcom because I think it created all the rules of making a sitcom for the longest time. I'm an Uber fan too because Lucille Ball actually was one of the producers of Star Trek at one point because she was part of the company Desilu Productions where they shot all the episodes back in the day. But if you go there, not all episodes of I Love Lucy are up there. There's about 200 episodes missing. And me as
just rights.
Yeah, me and
issues.
Well, yeah, it's so weird though. Why? And then Taxi, it's really really frustrating because they have, how they have 2-part episodes. They have part 1, but not part 2.
So why don't they have?
I don't know. I want to say that yeah, it's a rights thing, but why don't they have the second episode of that 2-parter? And then why only one season of 90210?
Because nobody likes anything after season 2. 90210, the first season was the best.
I actually dug all the high school stuff. I didn't like the Peach. I wasn't really gravitating to the Peach Pit After Dark. I thought that was a ridiculous storyline. I'm a 90210 fan. It goes Star Trek, 90210, Star Wars. Wait. Do I want to put Doctor Who? Star Trek, 90210, tied with Doctor Who. No.
Doctor Who is at the very, very, very bottom
list. Yeah. Well, maybe you'll like Discovery because if you like other television shows but wanted to see all their cliches clumped into one television show with spaceships, you might like it. That's the thing. I think maybe they did that so that they could bring in newer viewers and maybe they'll enjoy it. I just don't understand why someone who isn't new to Star Trek would want to do that.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess they got renewed for a second season.
Are you looking forward to the season finale tonight?
Yeah, I want to see what it's. I've always kind of give it a. I'm giving it a chance. The captain. It's because this is one of the first Star Treks that's not actually about the captain. They find out the captain was just a mirror, alternate universe, twin of the original captain.
Where's the original captain? Is he dead?
no one knows. They didn't. They said like, I switched places with the original Captain Lorca. That was the guy's name. And here's the thing: they built this character to be somewhat dimensional. That you're wondering why he's so, just like, I guess I don't know, mean in terms of a captain. He's a little bit more harsher than the other captains. But there were some likable qualities with him. He would also like, have these sort of like sudden outbursts of like violence when someone would like, prod at him while he's sleeping. Obviously because, he comes from a more, I guess, harsher background with, the Terran Empire. But then at the end, they just kind of turned him into a mustache-twirling villain, which I never understood. I mean, I'm hoping that there's something in this finale that might fix that, but I feel that that's not the case.
What was his motivation for switching with the other captain?
Well, it was more of an accident kind of thing. It's and it was kind of like an homage to how Captain Kirk got switched into the mirror universe, down to the ion storm. The other thing is that like the Michael Burnham character, so Michelle Yeoh's character dies in the first 2 episodes of Discovery, and that was Michael Burnham's Captain Georgiou. She sees the mirror counterpart and kind of sees like, oh, that's her, like, kind of thing. Kind of sees like, recognize aspects of like the Georgiou she knew. But then she does stuff like, they're kind of cannibals. They'll eat other alien beings, other sentient alien beings. They eat this Kelpian alien. There's a crew member aboard Discovery. He's a Kelpian. They have these like little things, ganglions. They're like sort of like, I guess they're little tentacle hair things that stick up when they sense danger. So she's eating food with kind of pretending that she's the mirror counterpart of the Michael Burnham of their dimension. And she's like, oh, the food's delicious as always. And it's like, yes, our chefs can prepare Kelpian quite masterfully. And like, here, have some of my ganglions, and she has to eat it. Long story short, there's this huge like gunfight, and like they discover like discoveries from the other dimension and stuff like that. And she's trying to she says like, okay, well, I've lost everything. I'm not the Empress anymore, but I'm going to go down in the blaze of glory. And for whatever reason, Michael Burnham like saves her in the last minute, beams her on Discovery as they're going back to the Prime universe. And it's like, why did you do that? And she's like, well, it's like emotional kind of response and stuff. Like, yeah, but that she's like evil Empress who's basically racist to aliens. You just saved Space Hitler.
Space Hitler, it. I think I need to start watching this now.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's a very dumb decision for a character to make, and it's very counterintuitive of anything that that you believed in about the Federation, about their officers and stuff like that. Now, with that being said, there are some things that that make me say, okay, that's the Federation, I know. But then it's in between these really dumb that's why I call her the Rick Grimes of that universe, because Rick Grimes makes stupid decisions in Walking Dead. But whatever. I guess if the kiddies like it.
All right, that's about does it for this show. That's a lot of Star Trek. All Star Trek all the time. We should just talk about Star Trek all the time.
You think?
Yeah. I every episode I want you to recap every single episode from the original series, so I don't have to watch it.
The original series is not that bad. There's actually some episodes you might actually like. City on the Edge of Forever, Doomsday Machine. A lot of fighting in that, I guess. You like fighting, don't you?
I liked when he fought Khan and he just beat him with the fucking metal pipe.
The pipe?
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish he did that in the
movie.
The movie. Actually, I guess they did kind of do that in Into Darkness.
Yeah, he beats him with that like
metal brass knuckles kind of thing. But doesn't kill him.
That is true.
Yeah.
Wait, he doesn't kill him in the movie though, right?
Who? Spock?
No, Khan. Khan doesn't kill. They don't kill Khan in the movie, right? They just like disable him and then he goes down.
Yeah, they put him in stasis and.
No, I mean in Wrath of Khan.
Wrath of Khan he dies.
They don't kill him. Like he dies because of his.
Of his own hand. He basically blows up his own ship.
Yeah.
With the Genesis device. Genesis.
That's it.
That's it.
That's all we got.
That's all we got. If you got questions, you can comment below, and we will answer them. Or you can just ask him right now, Vic. Huh? Hi, Vic. Hi, Vic. Are you still there? We gotta wait
Vic.
30 seconds. Then he'll be able to hear this.
As always, follow us on Twitter.
Yes. Hold on. Let me put that up right now.
Subscribe. Share, like, and subscribe.
Share, like, and subscribe. And always leave comments.
Leave comments. If you hate Star Trek, please email both of us. Please tweet us and say we hate Star Trek, especially checking dice, because he will fight you.
I will fight you.
Fucking nerds.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Keep it rolling. Bye, Vic.